Well, I thought today we'd actually try and play with the Big Max electronic robot by Remco. This came out around the mid-50s, I think around 1957. And you know, there's really only two types of toys. There's toys that you turn on or wind up and look at, and there's toys that you actually play with. And these are toys that you control. In this case, you control the toy, Big Max. You have 3 levers and a knob. There's 4 D-cell batteries inside, and you have one that'll turn the electromagnet on in his hands, and there's a light in his head that should come on at the same time. If the light doesn't come on, the electromagnet won't work. They're actually wired in series with each other. And they explain that on the bottom of the box. And then you have another lever that controls raising and lowering the arm. This one controls where you've turned the robot to all these different bins that are in here. And this one has a center position which is off, and then run the conveyor belt in one direction or run the conveyor belt in the other direction. Now, of course, the big problem with a toy that's would be about 64 years old now, is the rubber conveyor belts will have disintegrated, or in the case of this one, if I tried to run it, I would crack it and break it. It's not flexible anymore. And it was sold in 2 different box styles. If you bought something from Sears back then, it was going to come in a plain brown box to save money. And if you bought it just about anywhere else, you would get it in the fancy red cardboard box, which looks a lot better but costs more money obviously to produce. This one up here is original and mint, and the toy also came with this little truck which says Remco on the front, and it was meant to be pulled up to the conveyor so that as you pull things out with your electromagnet, nuts, bolts, washers, or the little metal slugs that they give you with the toy, you could run them into the conveyor and dump them in the truck. This little sack actually contains the steel pellets that came with the toy. Well, came with this toy anyway. This one still had some of its original steel pellets. They basically look like this. Now that they're corroded, they would have been shiny back in the day. But any little nut, bolt, or washer that's magnetic would have worked. Let's see if we can get a better angle down on this toy. Maybe that'll work better. We'll see. Well, you'll see. I can't see much when I'm trying to operate it. So, as I stated earlier, you've got a lever that will control the electromagnet. The light's on, so I know the electromagnet's on. And I have washers sitting over in this bin over here. Maybe the camera should be from this side. Let's try this new angle here and see if this will work out better, or at least not work out worse. So I can turn the robot over to the side where I know those are. I can switch the electromagnet on. I can lower the arm down into the bin, and it picked up 1 that time. You could then bring that over to your conveyor belt, turn your electromagnet off, and then you could drive that into your truck. Now, if your truck was over here, you could push this lever forward and it'll run the belt the other way. This is a belt that I made out of an old bicycle inner tube, probably over 30 years ago, so it's not in great shape either. But this particular Big Max had had a little harder playware. I can see cracks where things have been glued around here. The original belt was missing, for example. It did have the nicer box. It was the reason why I purchased it back when I did. But it also didn't have the little truck. So that's why I've got 2 Big Maxes here. Got the one that was complete and mint and everything with the truck, the washers, and the original box. And then I've got the fancy box one, a little bit more beat up. but it works. And let's try it again. See if we can pick up a few more than we did that time. Oops, don't need that. What I need is that. Oh yeah. See, I got a whole mitten full of them this time. You can take them here, you drop them on the conveyor. And let's say maybe your truck was over on this side. Yeah, you can drive them in your truck and then drive them off to wherever you wanted them to be. I guess theoretically, you should be able to pick things up off the conveyor too. Let's find out. It's not in the right location. It's going to be more tricky because you'd really have to be lined up just right. Huh, I got one of them. I'm going to take it over here and drop it. There we go. So, that's your Big Max, and I don't know how well the camera's picked all this stuff up. Hopefully well enough where you can see what's going on. We get the box in better so you can see the colorful box. It talks about it here. This is the top. Now, operating instructions. This is what you want. So you can do a freeze frame on the operating instructions and read them all. As far as the bottom, I have, or if you want to look more closely at the toy itself, this is what the bottom view of it looks like. The battery bar is just a plastic bar that pins in here and here to hold the 4 D cells in. I'm using on this one down here right now because it didn't have the battery bar. This one has the battery bar. But basically they're running the 2 D cells, 2 of them in parallel here, 2 in parallel there, to get more current. Because batteries back in 1957, they didn't have all that good of output power-wise, so they double them up. So it's a 3-volt system, but trying to get more current out of it. And then they give the instructions down here about how if the light burns out, the magnet in the hand won't work, and you're supposed to just chip the top of the light off so you can get in there. Then you can unscrew the bulb and replace it. So apparently this is glued on. They expect you to just snap it off. But there you have it. A very cool toy from 1957 that you actually could work with and play with. And it's actually not that hard to find. There's quite a few of them around. They're usually not real super expensive, but you are going to need to make a replacement for your conveyor in most cases.